What's going on, guys? My name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a first. Today I want to maybe start a new series, and it's just weekly news, like what happened last week, or this week rather, in World of Tanks. It's a series about all the things which got added to the super test, added to World of Tanks, or World of Tanks news in general, which simply didn't really yield enough material to make their own video. So yeah, this is why I decided to try and do this. Obviously, this is the first time I'm doing this, so everything might be a little bit rudimentary, and there's still things I gotta figure out, like how do I want to present the news and how do I want to do them. So if you have any real ideas, let me know in the comment section below. I'm very much appreciating right now feedback a lot when it comes to new series. So yeah, let's have a look at the first weekly news from the 28th of March until the 3rd of April. Now, let's just start with the 28th of March. Here we had several different things coming to the test server. This being almost only camouflages. The first one being the Songkran Camouflage, which is dedicated to the new year in Thailand and will be probably here for the 13th towards the 15th of April, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later, depending how Wargaming is going to roll out the new update 1.9. Next up, we have Hanami for the Japanese Golden Week, which will also be a 2D style. It's not clear. I don't think it will be Japanese exclusive. As you can see, the WZ113 GFTTD is using this camouflage right now, and it looks pretty darn easy, or cool in my opinion. Next, we have Victory Day camouflage, and it will be the 75 years anniversary of Victory Day apparently, and it will be celebrated on the May of 8th to May of 9th. And you can see it will have a clear style going for it, which will most likely be just all those newspaper. I don't really exactly know anything about history, but I can imagine that during the Victory Day that there were a lot of newspapers flying around just because of how great it was to have finally been over with the whole shenanigans the Second World War was. And lastly, for the 28th, we have some more decals as well as a 2D style for the Offsprings. What is going to happen with them? Don't know yet, but it is just once again an Offspring camouflage. So maybe Wargaming decides to do some more thing for the 10th anniversary because they already have them as models. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. Nevertheless, it looks like a pretty cool style, a little bit odd idea of using the GW Panther because, you know, artillery. But yeah, that is the 28th of March. Let's go on to the 29th of March, where we are going to have some changes to the Stridswagen K. And it will also be the third iteration of this tank and will be part of the 1.9 general test. And obviously those changes were implied to this second iteration of the test server. Now, the most important thing is the tank got some nerfs, quite some nerfs to be precise in my opinion. That nerfed its reloading time, giving it a EPM of 2200 rather than 2300. Then they also reduced quite by a lot, in my opinion, by 4 degrees, the turret traverse speed, and they nerfed the aim time from 1.7 seconds to 1.9 seconds. However, they did give it a little bit more hit points. They also nerfed the hit points from 1850 to 1750. The engine power got slightly nerfed, like it is very slightly. However, it was already buffed before, like from the first stats. Again, this is the third iteration. So now it has still a pretty decent HP per turn ratio, 16.25, but they did buff the top speed from 40 to 55, making this tank a little bit more agile when it comes to going down hills. However, they did nerf the reverse speed from 18 to 15, and they did nerf by quite a lot the whole traverse speed. However, the tank received 410 meters of fuel range rather than just 400, so that is pretty decent. Again, will be interesting to see what exactly is going to happen with the Stridswagen K. This is now the 4th, if I'm not mistaken, tier 9 tank in the game. We don't know yet what is going to happen with, so yeah, we'll see. The changes sound a little bit menacing. We'll see how it performs later. Now, this is information from the 31st of March, and this is some very interesting stuff because this is for the tier 9 heavy tanks of the ST-1 and E-75. Here we finally have some more concrete information what Wargaming is planning with the rebalance for those tanks. Also, please do not expect those changes to come to 1.9. It will be very, very rushed if they manage to do this in third iteration. So I would suspect those changes will be coming in 1.10 or 2.0, depending how they're going to call this update scheme. Nevertheless, they did change the ST-1's accuracy on the move quite a bit for both tracks and both turrets. So that is pretty interesting. Obviously, they did change the projectiles from BB, which is AP, to BP, which is APCR for the D25T gun, which is the stock gun. So they did do some quite nice changes to that, also making it a little bit more quicker, you know, having obviously more standard penetration, and the premiums being heats now at 270. But they did got more expensive, go figure. The Top Gun, however, also received some changes, making it more valuable. You can see you almost gain 200 DPM per minute, which is pretty decent, but you are losing accuracy from 0.36 to 0.38. But again, you are getting back accuracy from movements and turret traverse, so it's a little bit, you know, it roughly equals out. Just the tank is a little bit less accurate when you are trying to snipe. Then the E-75, now we finally got some concrete information. You can see that the top turret will get its turret armor buff from 252 to 280. That's pretty darn decent in my personal opinion. And I do personally hope that Wargaming decides to also implement those changes to the VKB, because imagine this tank is supposed to be even stronger, armored, and even slower, and it also has 265mm of frontal armor, and now the E-75 outshines this tank. Personally speaking, I think this tank turret could easily receive the 280 as well. Don't forget, it still has a rather big cupola. But also we got some changes to the guns, but we already know them. Now it's a little bit more concrete. We can see that, for example, the DPM of the stock gun, which is the 8.8 cm KWK or KBK 43L71 gun, you can see that the DPM goes up by 400, which is pretty substantial in my opinion. And you also get more HE damage, and this is also quite a lot more HE damage, which is very, very cool if you know when to use the HE. DPM wise, for the other two guns, there are only 200 HP increases. It's not that much, so you could in theory use the stock gun and be a little bit better than one of the top guns, but you lack the penetration, obviously. That is very, very important to notice. And I do want to point out that the top gun also received around a 200 DPM increase, which is pretty darn good in my opinion. Don't forget, it's 530 alpha. That's pretty substantial. So now let's go to the April Fool's Day, and Wargaming decided to not do any April Fool's joke, but rather they are saying, hey, look at that, that's the Concept 1B, which you already talked about in a separate video, and this tank will be let loose on the 1.9 update for super testers and developers, but obviously not CCs, because that's not how it works. We also have some more information about the A46, mainly being more screenshots of this vehicle, and once again we get the information that Wargaming is going to let this tank be tested on during 1.9 by super testers and developers. And the same thing goes to the Stridswagen G. And again, it is planned that update 1.9 will come between the 21st and 22nd of April. So yeah, Stridswagen K will be tested there as well by devs and super testers. And lastly, we have some more information about the Twitch Prime package, which will apparently come sooner or later, and it will involve 14 days rental for the Kruppsteier Waffenträger and the FV1066 Zen Lack, which is pretty darn cool in my opinion. And it will apparently be themed towards the Space and Cosmonautics Day, which will be coming up in April as well. So, next up we have some more informations. This time it is some more new styles which will come available during 1.9 as far as I know. This one being, well, it is a Masters of Orion skin, and those news were from the 2nd of April. It is Masters of Orion is a World of Tanks or a wargaming game, which is, I I don't know, it's a strategy game as far as I know. It looks pretty decent in my opinion, but maybe it's a little bit... Well, obviously it's for unicums, let's be honest, it's purple. Then we have this 2D style, the third of the planet. It is apparently for a comic series, if I understood it correctly. It looks pretty decent, but again, for us EU plebs or NA plebs, there's no real connection to this skin or style because it's a Russian comic series. So I don't know. Next up, we also have some information about this KV2 skin, and this is important. This is from 1.8, the Crimson Legion skin. This is the skin we already saw Ikibu teasing us. And I'm not entirely sure if you can get this skin by just playing the game. Again, there is from the 10th to the 20th of April an EKV2 event. And they did change its price for some reason. That is like the main news about this piece right here. It was changed, or those were just information. It will be changed later from 3,750 gold to I think 1,500. Not entirely sure, however. But again, this skin will most likely be available during this KV2 event. And now to the test server 2. What's it called? Patch notes. There we go. There will be a new interface for the top of the tree, which is decent. There were some bug fixes. They added the Kantimov's style, which we're going to have a look at in just a second for the T-3485, and it will be apparently for free on the May 9th, depending if it also will be free for for Europeans and NA people. And again, here we have, they did change the price of the Crimson Legion 3D style of the KV2 from 3,250 to 2,500. I still consider 2,500 gold to be pretty darn expensive for a tier 6 skin. You know, 2,500 gold, that's still 10 euros or roughly $10 or $11. I don't know, it sounds very expensive to me personally, so I'm not that big of a fan of that, especially, yes, it looks cool, but there's no real, you don't really get anything. And there were some more minor changes, mostly being horsepower changes here for the VK3000. There are some changes of HPs going around for other tanks. But you can see most important here, there are some changes for the different engines. But those are most likely just for the standard or stock engines as far as I know, depending for the VK. So... obviously, most importantly, the strength of the AMX 30 turret was changed from 360 to 380, meaning that the AMX 40 will have 20 HP more, which is very, very valuable. And there are some more changes to the pom-pom gun, which got changed, and that's about it. Again, there's just some minor low-tier changes. I'm still not happy about 1.9 when it comes to the changes to the collector's vehicle, especially higher tiers. It kind of just feels cheap to not allow us to have them as reward status, meaning we can put whatever tank we want in there or whatever tank crew we want in there. There was a feature in the sandbox server. It was scrapped because I guess Wargaming doesn't want to give free crew trainers out, even though those crew trainers will be rather expensive to use compared to other tanks. So yeah, and now we jump to the last day, the 3rd of April, and here we have the Kantemiroviet's skin for the T-3485. It will have a flag, and if you probably already saw on Reddit, this flag actually has flag physics. I don't know, it looks cool. Nevertheless, I would have hoped that this flag would have been an, should I say, a 3D decal or, I don't know, a 3D customization and not just a skin. Because right now the T-3485 just really looks, how should I say, bland. Like it's like with the Super Conqueror skin. It just really looks like it misses something, It really does miss something in my personal opinion. When we, for example, compare the S-Kong skin. Oops, that was the wrong nation. There we go. The S-Kong skin, you can see it. There is no really underlying color or very little underlying color comparing to the 277, which it just feels like it's more like a player would color it, like it has actually camouflage underlying. So I'm a little bit saddened how the T-3485 skin looks, but again, that's my personal opinion. Then we have some more changes to the other tank trees, the KV3 and KV4, as well as the T32 and M103. We get more information about this, and that's pretty darn cool. It's the third part 3, still iteration 1, so there will be some more changes. For example, the KV3 will get a turret front of 155 instead of just 130. It still will not be enough to hold off most people, but it will be definitely better against lower tiered opponents, so that is pretty darn neato. They also changed the amounts of shells for the lower tiered guns, and they did buff the T25T gun from 0.44 to 0.42 accuracy and an aim time of around 0.3 seconds, being faster. The KV4 also got a pretty decent thing, in my opinion. It received 40mm more turret front. That is pretty substantial and will make this tank a lot more tankier, in my opinion, than it is at the moment. Still, I hope the KV4 Kreslavsky will also get this treatment, because the KV4 Kreslavsky is still pretty trash, even if it is a reward tank. I know we don't want to have more overpowered reward tanks, but this tank is just garbage. Then we have the same changes as we had with the ST-1, where the stock gun got more penetration, the 122 D25T gun, which is pretty decent, and the 107mm CIS gun also got an improvement, mostly in accuracy wise, aim time wise, and even DPM. Look at that, it's almost 300 DPM more. That's pretty darn a lot, in my personal opinion. Especially combined with the much quicker aim time of 0.5 seconds being faster, that sounds very, very formidable to use. The T32 also got some changes, most just for the 105mm gun. Again, gets 10mm more penetration, it gets slightly more accuracy, faster aim time, and a lot more DPM. Again, it's 420 DPM more. That is a lot, in my personal opinion, or almost 420 DPM more. That is something you shouldn't underestimate if you are facing a T32. Obviously, the penetration still can be considered as bad, but don't forget this tank has premium rounds, you know. The M103 also got some changes to accuracy on the move and turret traverse, which is pretty decent, but there's not much. Okay, this is just on the move and not during turret traverse, so that's pretty decent, 0.2 to 0.18. Sounds pretty good. And the Top Gun also got some changes. It received around 270 DPM more, which is pretty decent, and that's about it. And lastly, one more final news. The ISU 152K will be introduced to the 1.9 server, and it now has an HD model, and it will be there for testing for devs and super testers. So it looks like the ISU 152K will get pretty darn close to be finished, depending on what Wargaming wants to do with this tank. Again, it's basically just an ISU 152 with better penetration, but everything being worse. Not really sure if this is an upgrade or not. But yeah, that really does conclude our news for this week. Let me know in the comment section below if you enjoyed it like this. Again, it might be a little bit dry, but I did want to include every single information we had. No, that is kind of like what I want to do. I want to be your news source for World of Tanks related stuff. But again, if you think, meh, wasn't really necessary, let me know. Seriously, that is, again, a point where I want to know what you are thinking. My name is RagingRaptor. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and obviously stay safe, stay at home, and good luck on the battlefield.